The President, please be seated. The court is now in session. We would like to hand over to counsels for the accused person, starting from counsels for Nuon Chea, to put questions to this witness. You may now proceed. Counsel Sonarun. Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honors. Good afternoon, Mr. Bien Kien. I am Sonarun. I am representing Mr. Nuon Chea. I have a few questions to put to you as follows. According to my observation concerning your responses to the prosecution counsels for the civil parties, you indicated that you joined the revolution for a long time already. I remembered you saying that you saw the revolutionary flags of the Communist Party of Cambodia. How could you describe the revolutionary flags to the court? How were they like? Or what were they like? Were they printed or handwritten, or were they published in the forms of a magazine? Could you please tell us about this? Response. Regarding the revolutionary flags, so far as I remember, there were sickle, the rice stalks were part of the revolutionary flags. The flag itself represents the country. There was a temple inside in yellow color. Whether the flags were written or handwritten or not, I'm afraid I don't recollect it. Question. This means that you only saw the cover of the revolutionary flags and you had no opportunity to even read the content of the flags. Is that correct? Response, yes, it is. Question. Mr. Witness, you testify before the chamber. You have been heard for almost 2 weeks, and you indicated that you have known Mr. Nuon Chea. Is that correct? Response. Yes, I had just known him when I started working at K1 because I was working at the kitchen with his wife, so I knew him back then.
អរគុណលោកសាក់សីលោកស្គាល់លោកនួនជាហ្នឹង
Question. Thank you, witness. How did you know Nuon Chia? Did you know him very well? Or were you told when walking on the road that somebody, or were you told that he was Nuon Chia, or have you had any conversation with him, for example? Response. I know him because I used to deliver food to him, and also I chatted with him. Thank you. Question. You say, so this means that you know him, but your relationship with him has not been very close. I may say so. Can you tell the court what Nuon Chia characteristic is like? Is he a very mean person, cruel, for example? Response. I remember knowing him as a person who is friendly, as normal. I have never heard any problems caused by him. Question. Do you know what Nuon Chia did during the revolution? Response. During the revolution, I had not known him yet. I got to know him after Phnom Penh was liberated. It was in late 1975 or late 1976 that I came to know him. Question. After 1975 or 1976 that you said you offered food to him, do you know what he did back then? Response. So far as I know, he was the representing the people. He was in charge of the People's Assembly. Question. Apart from the chairman of the People's Assembly, do you know what function he had back then? Response. No, I don't know. Question. According to the record of interview document D76/6, you stated before the co-investigating judges that you worked at the construction section for half a month, then the Vietnamese troops attacked Cambodia. Do you remember when exactly the Vietnamese troop came in? Response. I don't remember the exact date, but on the 7th of January, it was the time when the troops came. That's all I remember. Question, what year was it? Response, it was 1979. Question, is it correct to say that it was on the 7th of January 1979? Response, yes it is. Question, when the Vietnamese troops attacked Cambodia in 1979 in particular, you told the prosecutors and lead co-lawyers for the civil party that you left Phnom Penh on the 7th of January 1979. At that time, the Vietnamese troops already entered Phnom Penh. Did you see the Vietnamese troops coming to Phnom Penh with your own eyes? Response, I did not see the troops, but I saw the convoy of tanks and armored vehicles and soldiers were seen on the roads. I was fleeing on National Road number 4, going all the way to Kampong Speu, going on to the west until I reached the border. Question. Just now you stated that you did not see the troops directly, but you stated that you saw tanks. Whose tanks were they? Response. The situation was very chaotic. I heard people were saying that there were tanks that belonged to both the Vietnamese and the Cambodians. And since it was very confusing, the situation was very confusing, I couldn't be more precise. Thank you, says counsel. Next question. You stated time and again that you know Bang and Lin very well, and you also been very close to them, in particular to the two people, Bang and Lin. Since you have had a close relationship to them, could you describe Bang, his personality, whether he is or he was a cruel person or a normal person, please? Response. I have known them very well because I had been working with them. I received instructions on how to perform my work from him. For example, the tasks of delivering vegetables. He would ask me to do this and do that, and he would chit-chat with me, and he was known to be a normal person. Question. On the 7th of January 1979, you left Phnom Penh. The Vietnamese troops had come. Could you describe to us the situation in Phnom Penh? Was the situation confusing, and were people kept at home, or were they fleeing? Please describe the actual situation of Phnom Penh on that date. Response. As indicated, Phnom Penh situation was confusing. It happened both at houses and also on the streets. Things were chaotic. Question. Could you please describe how chaotic would you refer, how chaotic was the situation? Was there fighting or conflicts that led to this chaotic situation? Response. The chaotic situation was caused by people fleeing their homes and people running on streets. There was no fighting, but the situation was chaotic, as I said. Thank you. Question. Before 1975, during the time when you joined the revolution to liberate Cambodia from the imperialists, had you ever witnessed any bombardment, aerial bombardments by the Americans? Response. Yes, I did. I saw, or I was witnessing these aerial bombardments in Kampong Thom when the bombs were dropped from B-52 both at nights and during the daytimes. Each time we would see 3 B-52 bombers flying over our village, dropping bombs. Thank you. Question. Has any members of your family injured in the aerial bombardments? Response. None of them has been injured. The President, Council, could you please hold on? The President, counsels for Mr. Ieng Sari, do you know anything about Mr. Ieng Sari? Counsel Angadam, no, I have know nothing about him. The President counsels, you may go to check your client to see what happens to him. The President, Counsel, you may now proceed. Duty Counsel, Mr. President, witness would like to go to the bathroom. The President, he may go to the bathroom now. Counsel Angadam, Mr. President, Your Honors, Mr. Ieng Sari has significant health reason. However, with the assistance of the doctors on standby, his health, he is now stabilized, but still under close watch by the doctor. I have received information from the doctor that he will be evacuated to the hospital immediately. However, to save us time, I have consulted with Mr. Ieng Sari that we may proceed with the current proceedings. Unless the situation changes, I may advise the chamber on this, but he has advised us to continue without his presence. The President, now due to the serious health concern of Mr. Ieng Sari, the chamber allows the doctors to evacuate him to the hospital so that he can be treated. Just now, counsel for Mr. Ieng Sari indicated clearly that they have consulted with the accused person that Mr. Ieng Sari has consented that the proceedings would move on to save time, and according to internal rule, sub-rule 5 of 81, of rule 81 rather, the proceedings may continue since we have obtained approval from the accused person, and it already clear to the chamber that counsels have consulted with the accused, so the hearing will continue. We have already deferred on 2 occasions such hearing, and we should now continue since the witness health is stable to provide further testimony to the chamber. Counsel for Mr. Nuon Chia, you may now proceed with your questions. Counsel Sonarun. Thank you, Mr. President. I have 3 or 4 more questions before I conclude, and my colleagues will continue. Just now I asked Mr. Witness that you said you heard or you witnessed the American bombardments, aerial bombardments. But the question is, could you describe the casualties, the damages caused by the aerial bombardments? Response. The bombings caused damages to the paddy field, the rice fields and bridges. This is what I have heard, but there is no human casualties. At least not I had seen. Rather question. When you came to Phnom Penh on the 17th of April 1975, did you see whether there was any rice or properties left over, or were there any people at all staying in Phnom Penh? Because you indicated that when you came, some people were leaving. So my question again is whether you saw people all in Phnom Penh, or was it empty? Response. What I saw was that in Phnom Penh, it was quiet. So I could say that after the 17th of April 1975, people could have been evacuated already. Perhaps during the time when I entered Phnom Penh, people could have been evacuated already. I came to Phnom Penh through Prek Dam, and I saw people were on the road to their direction. Question: before you came to Phnom Penh, you worked as a soldier, and when Phnom Penh was attacked, you remained a soldier. When in Phnom Penh, did you see the Khmer Rouge soldiers fighting alongside the Vietnamese troops attacking Phnom Penh, or were the Vietnamese troops attacking or the Khmer Rouge troop attacking Phnom Penh alone? Response: before Phnom Penh was liberated, in Kampong Thom, I saw the Vietnamese troops. I asked people why the Vietnamese troops were there, but I was told that they were there to attack the common enemies, the American imperialists, alongside the Khmer Rouge soldiers. But when I entered Phnom Penh, I did not see them anymore because I was not a fighter myself. I lived with Koi Kun. I was kept at the place to look after it, and I had not been armed, so I did not engage in the fighting to see this. Question: you said in Kampong Thom you saw the Vietnamese troops. How many of them did you see? Response: I saw a lot of them. They were stationed along the river or streams near Santuk location. I saw them, or rather, the Vietnamese troops were gathered in three locations, but I don't remember which location they were. Question: so according to your recollection, you said that the Vietnamese troop were seen in Sandan or in Santuk in Kampong Thom. Were the Vietnamese troops mixed with the Khmer Rouge soldiers?
They live separately, and their work was also separate, and they also located in different places as well. Thank you. Question: to your knowledge, or to what you heard, were there many Vietnamese soldiers? How many divisions were there, or how many regiments were there? To my surmise, there could have been around 1 divisions of the Vietnamese armies there. Question: after Koi Thun was arrested, Did you know what happened to those who were in the rank, particularly those who work closely with him? Did you know the reason for the arrest of Koi Thun? Koi Kun, my apology. At first, I was not aware of the reason for his arrest. But later on, there was a radio broadcast that Koi Kun was alleged to be affiliated with the CIA network. That's what I learned. Thank you. After Koi Kun was arrested, according to your previous testimony, you said you lived in fear, and then you were transferred to Wat Swai Mias Pagoda, and you were in charge of the work at Wat Swai Mias Pagoda. Did you understand why Koi Kun was alleged to be affiliated with the CIA network and he ended up being arrested while you were transferred and promoted to be in charge of the work at Swai Mias Pagoda? At Swai Mias, my task was not something important. It was a very small cooperative, and it was a place where people were forged in the heat constantly. And so I did not assume any leading role. I was only charged with the responsibility of overseeing the tempering session of the people over there. And I was living in fear, and when I was being transferred from K1 office to Swai Mias, my concern was growing because I did not know what would happen to me. Question: so when you were transferred to Swai Mias, did they tell you what you were supposed to do over there? Response: as I told you earlier, it was a small cooperative. It was a small collective cooperative. And over there were wavering and we grew vegetables. There were about 30 people in that cooperative, and my responsibility was not important. My everyday job was to go out fishing, and then after that when free I grew vegetable, and then after that, I was sent to Phnom Penh, and I work as a construction worker in Phnom Penh. Thank you. That is all for me, Mr. President, and I would like to ask for your leave to hand it over to my international colleague. The President: yes, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. And once again, thank you for coming to Phnom Penh to assist us. I'll be very brief. I don't have too many questions this afternoon. I've got two areas I'd like to cover. The first relates to some testimony about K1. You have provided testimony already about the location of K1. And I just note that previously there has been some testimony that K1 was located on the riverfront of Phnom Penh near the Chaktumak Theater. And that, of course, is a very famous building here in Phnom Penh, designed by the great Cambodian architect Van Mollivan. Mr. Witness, are you familiar with the Chaktumak Theater? Or the Chaktumak Conference Hall, as it's sometimes called.
Response. Yes, I know that theater, but I did not know its exact location and direction because I went there. I have not been there again.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. There has also been testimony before this chamber that a certain Chinese circus troupe gave a performance at that theater, at the Chaktumak Theater, sometime during the DK period. Mr. Witness, are you personally aware that any such performance took place during the DK regime at the Chaktumak Theater, that is, a Chinese circus performance?
Yes, I saw it once, but I cannot recall the place where the performance took place.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Mr. Witness, did you also know, are you also aware that later in the same year, later in 1979, the Vietnamese-backed government in Cambodia, that's the PRK, the People's Republic of Kampuchea, in which, by the way, I'm sure you're aware, Hun Sen and Heng Samrin held key positions. Are you aware, Mr. Witness, that at that same location, the Chaktumak Theater, the PRK orchestrated a trial in absentia of Pol Pot and Yang Seri? Have you ever heard of that trial, Mr. Witness?
Response. I do not know about that.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. And my final question on this point, are you aware that this building, that is the building we are standing in today, the one that houses the ECCC courtroom, are you aware that this building is a copy, a reproduction, albeit not a very faithful one, but that this building is a copy of the Chaktumak Theater where that circus and political show trial were held? Are you aware of that fact?
The President, the witness is instructed not to answer to this question because the question is irrelevant.
Your Honor, I'll just note for the record that we have raised the issue before about show trials and the fairness of the proceedings, so this should not come as a surprise. This is certainly not the first time that this issue was raised, but I will move on to my next set of questions for the witness. Mr. Witness, my next set of questions relates to testimony you gave this morning regarding your time at Svei Mias Pagoda. Now, you've already told us that for some time you worked there. You worked at the Svei Mias Pagoda. And perhaps we could place a document on the screen. That's E187.1. That document was already on the screen this morning. I'd like to ask the witness a few questions about that document.
The President, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, do you see the document in front of you?
The President. Council, please identify the document together with the EON number so that the court officer can point to the place where you want to discuss to the witness so that we can move on expeditiously.
Yes, I will do that, Your Honor. My apologies for neglecting that. It's document, again, as I said, E187.1. It's the former SOAS interview with the witness. The English ERN I'm looking at, 000-89701. Khmer 00801769. And the French 00644. It's the same document that was before the witness this morning. Mr. Witness, I would just like to ask you two brief questions about this document. The second full paragraph, the first sentence, it says, I was sent by Lin to take charge of Svemia's pagoda after Pong was arrested. Is that a correct, an accurate summary of your statement, that first sentence?
Yes, indeed, I was sent to Swai Mias Pagoda, but as I wish to reiterate again that I did not hold any position of importance. I was not the leader of that particular place.
I understand your evidence on that. Thank you, Mr. Witness. And the second point, the next sentence, at the end of 1978, I was in charge of first Vot Svemias and then workers at PH1. Is that also an accurate reflection of your statement?
I was in charge. The word in charge here does not necessarily mean that I led the people over there, but I actually oversaw the tempering session over there. When I left K1, I was transferred to Swai Mias.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. And that was my next question, just to clarify something that I took down during the questioning of my colleague. You said you were overseeing, even though it was a small cooperative, you were overseeing the tempering sessions. So that is indeed your evidence, correct? That you were overseeing the tempering sessions.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. And just to clarify, as you've already said in your evidence, that it was true that people were sent to that location for a certain kind of forced labor, were there other forms of tempering at that location?
The forms of tampering at Swaimies, as I indicated earlier, that the work was divided among members of the cooperative. Some people were assigned to go out fishing, and others were responsible for vegetable growing, others were responsible for wavering.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. And this morning, you told my colleague across the stage for the civil parties that you didn't know whether anyone was taken away from Svemius to be killed at S21. My question to you now is, isn't it true that people were taken from that location, from Svemius, to be killed at other locations, not necessarily S21? Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not aware of it, and neither have I seen it.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Mr. Witness, are you familiar with someone called Yum, the widow of an S-71 cadre, Yom? Are you familiar with this person?
Respond, no, I don't. I don't know his name, and neither have I met the person.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. I'd now like to place a document on the screen. It's document D224.14, and that's English ERN 00352073, Khmer ERN 00658158, and French, for Judge Laverne, who's on his feet, 00631370.
The President. Yes, Counsel, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, the document in front of you is another SOAS witness statement, similar to the one that you gave, and I'd just like to read a portion of that, the portion that I'm interested in. But when we were at Voat Che Udam, Voat Sleang, Voat Svemius, and Kamut, there was no political education, just work, paddy farming. People disappeared every night and were taken under Y-10 guard. If anybody made any trouble, the Y-10 guard would come, arrest them, and take them away. Does this, Mr. Witness, in any way refresh your recollection whether anyone was ever taken away Meas Pagoda.
The International Co-Prosecutor, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologise to my friend for interrupting. I'm not on my feet, strictly speaking, to object, but just more generally as a matter of principle, thus far we haven't been permitted to use statements of other individuals in our examination of witnesses. We don't object to this practice where there's a legitimate basis to do so, but it may be appropriate perhaps if the Chamber could give some direction to us at this stage so that we all operate on the same understanding. Thank you.
President. Counsel, you may respond to the objection raised by the prosecution.
Thank you, Your Honor. Of course, it's always been our stated position for the record that there's no legal basis for that position that the Chamber has adopted, and we've said that several times. This is not an OCIJ statement. This is not a statement that was prepared by the ECCC. This is something that was prepared by a researcher. I think it's perfectly acceptable to put the proposition to the witness and see what he has to say about it. I don't see anything controversial in that practice. I might just ask for the Chamber's clarification on a point. This is a document that's not on our witness list. It's a document that we'd like to use for impeachment purposes. So can I take it that the scenario, the proposal, the methodology that I referred to before with respect to the distinction between impeachment material and new documents, can I infer that that has been accepted and that we will be allowed to continue impeaching witnesses? Your Honor, if I may just make two brief corrections for the record. I'm told by my colleagues that I said witness list rather than document list. I assume everyone understood what I was talking about. And I'm also told by my Cambodian colleague, and I'm being told by Judge Cartwright to slow down, I was also told by my Cambodian colleague that the word impeach has a certain or a very negative connotation in Khmer. So all I mean by that is to test the credibility. That's all I mean, to challenge the credibility, to test the credibility. I don't mean whatever, in fact, it is that it means in Khmer, which is, as I'm told, quite strong. I'm sorry I cut you off, Mr. President.
The President. Thank you all. The time is now appropriate for the afternoon adjournment. The chamber will take a short break for 20 minutes, and we will resume at 3 o'clock. And we will continue the proceeding after we resume. And court officers is instructed to bring the witness and his duty counsel to the waiting room and have them here before 3 o'clock. The court is adjourned.
Thank you.